Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to FPL Don't Panic. Note to self, don't just get straight out of bed. Don't make coffee. Hear all the news on Isak and Wizza and all of the transfers going on. And new United goalkeeper landing in Manchester. Think, oh, better go on and do me updates. Yeah, have a shower, make coffee, have a shave. Get your thoughts together, because that was one mad long waffle for about 30 minutes when I was actually listening to the playback. So I immediately deleted it. Unfortunately, 10 people had actually watched it and liked it. You guys, some of you really will actually get through the nonsense, because you know in there is one or two gems. But I have deleted it, just doing a sort of a remake. But it was, and some of the graphs and things I was showing didn't actually come up very, very clearly on the screen, because it was all thrown together very, very quickly. What are we going to talk about? I'm not going to do the game week review here. I might actually do that when I do the Bishop Brennan Cup. But in summary, 35 points, absolute bloody disaster. The 5 players that I had going out on Sunday, where I was on 25 points, got me to 35 points. So basically the bare baseline minimum. It was, as they say, an unmitigated disaster. Get it? It could have been worse. It could have been much, much worse. As it hit Sunday, as I said, I was on the 25 points, and I just had Milenkovic and just reindeers, Milenkovic, reindeers, Verts, etc., etc. About 5 players and De Kroijpe. I was hoping if I could have got to 50, that would have been grand. But no such luck. But it could have actually been a lot worse with the Haaland owners, the Wood owners, etc. Haaland, Wood, Salah, and out of those, only Haaland came in as a captain. I've dropped to about 3 million. It ain't great, but oh my God, there's so many in the same position out there. There are so many in the same position. And as I'm doing this is going to be mainly about the wild card and some further thoughts on that, particularly with some of these transfers that are getting confirmed this morning. There's so much to think about. It's a very, very, very weird first 3 game weeks, isn't it? Going to talk a little bit about that as it relates to how putting this draft together. So let's talk about the draft first. So this is the wildcard draft, as you can actually see it on the screen there. That's how it currently sits. Actually, don't mind the look of it. As you'll know from yesterday's video, I ran it as a shadow squad. So bearing in mind my team hit 35 points. When I put this team together, I've run it as a shadow squad to see how it would have actually performed in this game week. I tell you what, I wish I'd wildcarded a game week early. Would the team have still been the same? Would have certainly been similar. It would have absolutely been similar if I had wildcarded in 3. Do I regret not wildcarding in 3? Little bit. But although it will have cost me, and you'll see the amount it will have cost me by not going early with it, just think, given this international break, exactly what I said in the volatility of this last day of the transfer deadline. There was just so much happening going on. As I say, Isak, Guehi, United goalkeeper. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. There's going to be more before this thing is closed off. Let's look at it though in relation to the spreadsheet, how it would have gone in 3, and also again reiterating the point that these points are not real. This is one of the bad things about not being able to get to a little bit further along, at least 6, 7, 8 game weeks of data before hitting that wildcard button, because my own methodology, data is king, and averages are not reliable out of just 3 game weeks of data. You need at least 5, 6, 7. It's really 8, 9, 10 game weeks ideally. I would have liked to have got to 6 without wildcarding, but my hand was forced because my team was decimated with injuries, minutes risks, etc. So this is still the first draft, obviously. Just bring it up on my sec. Technical issues. Right, got it. There we go. That'll do me. Hopefully you guys can all see that clearly. Let's just run through it. I think maybe running through it will give you some of my thoughts here. Sanchez in goal. Sanchez is in my normal team, going very, very well. Oh, sorry, just quickly, this team would have achieved 67 points without captaincy in the last game week, as compared to my 35. That doesn't include captaincy, as I said, and I'd spoken about. I think my next step going forward on this wild card is to choose a perma captain, so I'm not points dodging, which is basically what I've been doing with my captaincies in the first. Well, obviously I had the Cunha injury, disaster for the last one, but other than that, it just feels like I've been points dodging. So looking at those City fixtures, maybe apart from Arsenal away, I'd sort of maybe do a perma captain. So Haaland would have been the captain, so the team would have finished on 76. Now, how reliable is that going forward? We don't know. 3 game weeks of data simply isn't enough, but it is all I've got. So I'll run through this team. I don't mind it. I've gone in this direction initially because I'm also trying to capture price rises. There will be changes to it, and there are some significant thoughts in terms of what I'll need to do either now to save me transfers around 6 or 7, or I will really have to make sure I do roll to be where I want to be around 6 or 7. So I'll need to definitely have to roll. So I've got Sanchez in at the moment in fantasy Premier League site. I have actually changed that to Vicario at the moment. There seems to be a little push towards Vicario, which I can understand, because there are some. You've got the West Ham fixture, Brighton away is not too bad, then Wolves home, Leeds United. So I can understand the move towards Vicario, absolutely. And I may go there. I may go with Vicario, but I've got Vicario in the. I just changed it this morning when I saw price rise imminent, because part of what I'm trying to do in this first week or so of the international break is build squad value. But it's not a bad move, Vicario, given the fixtures, and because I've got a fair bit in my budget because of the structure of this team. I could potentially look at a good 4.5 rotation keeper as well, but I think I'll stick with the Dubravka on the bench. They're not looking that bad, are they? They're keeping the odd clean sheet, and Villa home is not very scary. If I did want to move, I'm trying to look at. Well, sorry, Rose should be looking at the Spurs fixtures. Actually, Spurs fixtures are pretty good, aren't they? Brighton away is not that scary. But the way Villa are playing, you could bring Dubravka in there. Anyway, got Sanchez in here. Could turn into Vicario. It's a minor detail at the moment. We'll look at that in a week's time as I start to finalise this team. But Sanchez's averages are very, very good, and his form is there, and some of the fixtures not too bad. Take a close look at that another time. I brought Porro down to Romero. Romero showing good numbers, as I say. Porro, as much as I like him, it's just saving that bit of money. And Romero could still come down further to a Van de Ven, who's obviously been doing pretty well as well. But again, good averages there, and Romero's been ticking along nicely in the first couple. Bit of a blip there. In 3. Senesi looks like a real bargain there at 4.5. DEFCON monster. He could have a nice baseline of 4, whatever happens, provided he doesn't concede any more than 2 goals. Some of the fixtures not too bad, and there'll be some good rotations off the bench, so absolutely fine with that. And I'm going to talk about these defensive averages that I put in here. I like to get 4 out of my keeper, 5 out of my defenders. This is where I just don't trust these numbers. DEFCON obviously has a little bit of an effect there, but I'll talk towards the end of the video about why. And I'll bring up charts showing midfielders, forwards, and defenders. And at the moment, defenders are outscoring midfielders and forwards. That is not sustainable. That's not sustainable. That's why I don't trust these numbers, but they are the only numbers I've got. And in fairness, it still did hit in a very low scoring game week. This team did still hit 76 points, if you include the captaincy. Keep going, Des. Lacroix. Okay, so worries around Lacroix. I think Lacroix is absolutely fantastic. I think he's superb. Palace are going brilliantly, exceeding all expectations, just continuing on where they left off from last year. But Guihi's going. How is that going to affect them? They seem to have got over the Eze going reasonably well, don't they? But I do think we need a Palace defender, don't we? With Sunderland at home and West Ham away. Those are two fabulous fixtures that you want to attack. But in saying that, in this weird universe of football we're in at the moment, West Ham yesterday, what was that all about? It is so hard to predict. West Ham looks a different team. Absolutely different team. 3-0 against Forest. No one would have predicted that after the first 2 game weeks. No one. It certainly cost me, because I've obviously had Milenkovic. Thought, yeah, finally get some points out of Milenkovic. No. Semenyo, not his greatest day at the office for 3. That's why I kind of like this team and the way it's come up with the 67, how nicely the points are spread around. I mean, even if you say divided Sinisi, took that as an anomaly and divided that by 2, just take the clean sheet out of it. It would still have been, with the captaincy, it would have still been a very, very good scoring game week. So I do sort of look for where there are, these anomalies. But Semenyo still actually looked good in that game and could easily. I mean, this is the thing with Semenyo; he will get the shots off. He is the talisman in that team now. He really is. So yeah, I think at his price and everything, I think you absolutely want him. You absolutely want him. And there are some really nice fixtures. Newcastle home, not too scary really. Again, could develop a rotation off the bench there. I'll talk about that in a minute. Brighton home, not bad. Then you've got Leeds and Fulham coming up. It's a good run of fixtures here up till 7, and that's kind of where I'm looking to for most of them. But I've got Rangers in there at the moment. Good run of fixtures, very good run of fixtures, really. Right up till yes, it's just a really nice run of fixtures, that, isn't it? May change though. May change. Remember, I've talked about my Rodri. I spoke about him pre-season. I've spoken about him a few times, waiting for him to come back from injury. Now you can say, well, they did nothing yesterday. City were shit. They got beaten 2-1. He had pretty much hit his DEFCON numbers before the 60th minute. In the first half, he was controlling the game. He had more passes and more interceptions than any player on the pitch. Now, Pep is supposed to be the greatest manager in the world. What the hell are you leaving a guy on for 90 minutes for that hasn't played a full game for God knows how long? Really, honestly, shit management. Sorry, Pep. Really shit management. No wonder you blow United in the table. Rodri faded and City faded. Of course he faded. He was burnt out, and he still kept him on. Anyway, that's my little thing there. Although Rodri didn't score or get a clean sheet point, etc., I really, really strongly believe they will come. I really, really do. And I think Rodri will do what he did certainly 2 years ago, just based on what I saw in that first 45 minutes in particular, and just about up to 60. He'll hit his DEFCON numbers. It gives him a baseline of 4. Right? The clean sheets will come. There'll be 5. And he will roughly get an attacking return every 3 to 4 games. Work out that average. That money, you've got a midfielder there, hitting, a 6-7 point average. And it labels so many other things. So I am still on my Rodri train despite that. And Rangers may well change into Rodri. Sarr. Now, he's flagged at the moment, but apparently he is okay. I think the guy's magnificent, to be honest with you. I think he's going to be the new talisman of that team, honestly. He's getting returns, and what I've got there is red fixtures. Sunderland at home, West Ham away, maybe not as easy as it was a week ago. Um, Liverpool home in 6, Everton away, then a couple of nice fixtures. You know, it's a bit of a mixed run of fixtures, but if I've got the right rotations off the bench, but Palace have shown they can get results against anyone. Just that little worry around Gahey. So it's Sarr in there at the moment. He's due a price rise as well. That might slow down though with him being flagged, but apparently he's okay. Hope so. Here we move into something a little more complex. Now we've got obviously we've got the Isak situation. Now he's signed for Liverpool. So I'm going to talk about Gakpo and Etikite as one here. Clearly, someone's minutes at risk. You do not buy a £120 million forward to leave them on the bench. Now, I'm pretty sure Gakpo and Etikite, and their numbers, as you can see, they're great. They're hitting my averages. Will be okay for 4. We'll have European football. I think there is a European match for Liverpool between 4 and 5. Is that when Isak will get, and that's going to influence when I start to think about bringing Isak in. I've got 2 million in the bank. My move is likely that Etikite will turn into Isak. Now, also as we're moving into this sort of, heading towards 6 and 7, I know that I absolutely will want a triple up on Arsenal. Certainly a double up, possibly a triple up. It's kind of how I get there. Will it be through rolling and do it all in one hit? Or do I massage these players in? But my general thoughts are that my defence, I've got Romero, Sinisi, Lacroix there at the moment, and on the bench Tarkowski and Chalobah. Someone will turn into Gabriel. So I've got one in place, and I can actually maybe rotate them in. And with Arsenal, of course, you never know when they're going to get that clean sheet. And what I do like at the moment is that Gabriel hasn't got his customary 3 or 4 goals, so they're still there for me, because he will score 3 or 4 goals. I think Gabriel is ultimately where I've gone. Little temptation with Timber, but again, it's Gabriel's nailed on. Timber, I think, is a fantastic player. I really do. Is he nailed on though? Don't know. I think it will be Gabriel. Just go that safe pair of feet, and knowing that safe head will get on the end of one of those lovely set pieces, 2 or 3. Somewhere across the season, and there will be some holes in there. Not great for DEFCON though. Maybe that might change. And what's the Saliba situation? Not sure at the moment. Haven't had any news on that. Back to the point though. I may bring Gabriel in early within the wild card because it will make it easier for me then to potentially, and I think this is where I'm going to go, that Gakpo will ultimately turn into Eze. So I do think Eze is going to be nailed on. Watch this space. And Etikite will turn into Isak, and João Pedro may well turn into, because he's got the fixture turn there in that sort of, around the 7. Etikite will turn into Gyökeres. That is not a set in concrete plan, but it's just to give you a little bit of an idea of where I'm going with this. Ultimately, where I'm actually going with this, where it's going to roughly be by the end of this international break as we go into game week 4, and where it'll probably be by about game week 7. It's just how do I get there, because let's face it, we all aspire to rolling these transfers, but I've never got to 5. Last season never got to 5. Best I managed was 3, and that was always something always happens. As I say, and as I've seen these first, there was always an injury. There's always something always happens. Thus, one of the reasons I do want to try and play this fairly deep bench, but I don't obviously want to do it too much to the detriment of the first 11. I mean, as I do look at that bench as well, the only really sort of bad game week there, because bearing in mind should have 2 or 3 Arsenal in by game week 7, so a lot of that blue and red will have disappeared, so that should look like a really nice sea of green. The only game week that doesn't look fantastic there up till 7 will be, is 5. Beyond that, 8, a little bit of blue there, but Arsenal will take some of the places there with some great fixtures, and obviously up front as well, there'll be some good fixtures as well with Gyökeres, etc. It's a jigsaw. It's a jigsaw. 5 is where I might do some bench tweaking just to improve the situation there for 5. So I'm sort of going to be having a look at that. So talking about that, so that's where the wild card is at the moment. The main purpose of it at the moment, build team value, but there is a lot in there I like, and I think a lot of it will be retained. Even on the bench there. I mean, Grealish, it's like new man. Pep, what do you do to these players? I know you play systems, but Grealish is just looking magnificent at the moment, and Villa at home hold no fears. If Grealish makes it to the end of this international period, when I finalise the wild card, Tarkowski, Defcon Monster, Chalobah chugging along very, very nicely indeed. Look at those defensive averages, though. Let's have a look at this. This is some of the stuff I am taking a little bit into consideration as I'm building this team. One of the challenges. Don't know. I'm sure a lot of you play the game similarly to me. You look at your data, you look at who are the top point scorers, etc. And I usually do wildcard in that sort of 4, 5, 6 area, anyways. Once you've got a bit of data, and normally when you look at the top 4 or 5 defenders, at about around 4, 5, 6, the top 5 strikers, and the top 4 or 5 midfielders, you can't have them all because you've got your Salahs up there, and you've got your Haalands up there, and you've got your Watkinses up there, and you've got your Sakas up there, and you've got your Gabriels up there, and your Salibas. You can't possibly have them all for 100 million, except this year. So I could quite literally put a team together showing averages for the first 3 game weeks with no bother at all, showing averages of 90 and more. And that is just not realistic. If you were actually getting that week on week, you would be winning FPL by a country mile. This is where the only thing that concerns me, even with that draft that I've done, even though it did show a really good game week this week, when I put it together, a few players had gone, but it was quite a few to go. And it was only sitting on about 30 points, and it came in with a very, very respectable 76. So that thinks, well, that's not too bad. I'm sort of getting the balance right between the old diehards and some of these new guys that are sort of breaking through, showing good form with good fixtures. But if you just look at some of these numbers, I mean, and his defenders are outrageous numbers. Now I know Defcon does have a bit to do with that, but not as much as what it's doing. And it's the names that are up there. It's got this one. Yeah, look at that. I mean, right there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all very, very easily affordable, wouldn't it be? Those 5 defenders, and sorry, I'll just make this big because my eyes are still morning eyes. You could nearly field the top 5 defenders there, and showing averages of 7 or 8, even on the bench. And defenders are outscoring apart from Enzo. They're outscoring or right up there with your top sort of midfielders. I mean, Cullen, Lepeke actually had a fantastic game yesterday. Lepeke, he was very, very good. Anthony Burnley, seriously, Grealish, who would have called that? Unleashed at Everton. Is it sustainable though? I mean, he's just had the 2 games for them, and he's right up there. Semenyo, you could have potentially predicted that. Enzo, you wouldn't have predicted that. And yet, I know there is that penalty in there. But Enzo's still not a bad buy. But do you look at the prices? And 5, 3, 7, 6. Yeah, you could averaging 8 or 9, 7, 8, 9 for all your midfielders. The only one that looks halfway normal, that maybe you could have potentially predicted it, knowing that João Pedro was going, knowing that Ekitike is at the pointy end of the Liverpool attack, João Pedro at the pointy end of the Chelsea attack, and Haaland, great, he's in there. But their numbers are less than the bloody defenders. Charlison, Wood up there, but not looking as good as he did sort of in that opening game. Gyökeres, yeah, I've got faith in Gyökeres. Like I said, you could very easily, very easily take just all of those players and afford them and still have a chunk of money in your bank to do other things. Now, I don't advise doing that. I'm certainly not going to do it. It's got to be a mix of obviously looking at some of those players and see is their form sustainable, how reliable they've been in the past. You know, your Semenyo's, we know Grealish has got it in his locker, so yeah, don't mind. There's a lot of questions here, but as I say, it's just those numbers are not real and not sustainable. The cream will ultimately rise to the top, but when? That is what I'm going to try and work out as I go through this process of doing this early wildcard in 4. Happily, I've got 2 weeks to think about it, and I think the truth is it's going to be a mixture of those things. Watkins, I was waiting for him to get a goal yesterday. They were once again shocking. I still do believe once Watkins bursts his seal, he will start scoring. But I ain't going to be going for him in this wild card. I can tell you that for nothing. A lot to think about. I'll leave it at that. Hopefully that started to sort of give you a little bit of an idea around my thought processes. I will be back in a couple of days with the Bishop Brennan Cup. Not a good game week, folks, for any of us, really, apart from one person cracked the 70. To be fair, anything over 50 this week, it's a really, really good score. Really good score if you got over 50, given the game week that it was. But I think we've just got one player cracked the 70, but he did take one hit. So I need to see if is he the actual winner. I'll be back in a couple of days anyway with the Bishop Brennan Cup, and we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments. Read the wildcard as it is at the moment. Any thoughts on any players I should be looking at, or my general thoughts as where I want to be 4, moving towards 7 and beyond, as I try and start to claw back this gaping deficit I've left myself with after game week 3. I've been in worse positions and recovered it. Happily, this has happened early. I've wildcarded early, and you know the only way is up from here. He said, hopefully. Take care, have fun, play your own game, don't panic. I'll see you in a couple of days' time. Bye-bye.